2, 1.
Boom. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Judah Hoover. This right over here is my good friend Donna Mick, and over on the other side of her is Josh Weidman. I'm a real estate investor and a lender. My contact information is right up there over Josh. Josh is a real estate investor and a hard money lender. His contact information, oddly enough, is right up here over me. And today on the show, we have Donna Mick, who during non-COVID times, I got to know Donna, it's been 10 years? 7 years?
Probably. Yeah,
it's probably about 10 years now. I know you and I both had much less gray hair than what we do now. Donna is a member of my Real Estate Investors Club. And so we're just going to be talking with Donna a little bit today. This is the Build and Grow with Real Estate show. We love coming to Facebook almost every day. We come 2 to 3 times a week with great shows and great content, teaching people how to do 2 different things. Number one, how to make a daily wage, make a living, build a career somehow associated with real estate, be it a lender, be it a realtor, be it working as a title company or appraiser or contractor or something like that. There's a lot of ways to have a career that touches real estate. And that can also teach you then and open up a lot of doors to then also build wealth in real estate. And be it through the note business, one of the things we're going to be talking about with Donna today, be it through buy and hold, be it through flipping, be it through subject to. There's a bunch of different ways to build wealth through real estate. And we should also just add a little bit of a caveat. Josh Weidman's home construction purchase is stubbornly dragging on, and we can hear it there in the background.
Oh, beautiful. All right. So look, they're putting a hole in my house right now. So excuse me for there being a little bit of noise. I will mute while I'm not talking. Sorry.
No worries. No worries.
I thought it was one of your favorites.
So
all my kids are back to school now, so we're in good shape.
All right. So Donna, I got to say this. The biggest fascination that I have, Judah's like sending me notes and, he's like, oh yeah, she hates debt. And I'm like, hates debt? Man, I love this woman. I think that's awesome. I think that's a great stance. And I think that a lot of times with real estate investing, I'm not trying to push us down this rabbit hole, but a lot of times with real estate investing, we hear all about the leverage that can go on and how great the leverage is and how awesome that is. Just like when you're trading margins, because we've talked about this on the show before, when you're trading margins and prices go up, you make a ton of money. But when you're leveraged and prices go down or things go really wrong on every aspect, you can be in real trouble. So really? I love to talk to people that have maybe not a fear of debt, but a healthy respect for it and an understanding that, I'm a firm believer that debt is slavery. Like, you have an obligation to get up and go to work to pay that guy back because you owe him money. And I think that, the more debt we take on, the potential there's a lot of potentially bad things that can happen from that. I don't think that that's addressed enough in the real estate investing space.
Yeah.
Well, let me just preface this by saying all of that is changing for me. So I had I have the fear of debt because my dad always taught me if you can't buy cash for something, you can't pay cash for it, you don't pay for it, like you don't buy it. And I really believe that. And honestly, that is what's got me to where I'm at. But it really wasn't until I started going to Judah's group and starting to learn a little bit more about the difference between assets and liabilities and how, they're buying a bunch of, liabilities. Yeah, that is really bad debt, but you can now buy an asset and you can then use that asset that's good debt. So, it took me several years, but I finally got to the point where this year I finally applied for a home equity line of credit on one of my properties that I own free and clear. So I'm like, okay, time to leverage this debt. So, but sure. It's a real mind shift. But that mentality is what got me my first property. I was probably my 28, 29 when I found Rich Dad Poor Dad, cliche, right? And it really started to change the way that I thought. And I started telling people that, by the time I'm 35, I'm going to buy my own house and have it free and clear. And people would tell me, oh, you can't, tell me all the reasons why I couldn't. And for some reason, it just kept nagging at me. Like that thought was just there. And I found out about the tax sales. And I went to the Harrisburg City tax sale 2005. It was crazy. Like the line was out around the door. Like, I mean, they started late because that's how long it took to get everybody registered, right? So a lot of competition, went in, had no freaking clue what I was doing, right? I just knew how much money I had and what I could, bid to. But I had gone and had downloaded all the stuff. I'm really into computers and data. So I knew the city well enough that I could parcel it off, and I drove around. I looked for properties, and I knew which ones, and I followed them, which ones were going to be left. And I knew
hold on, time out. So hold on, time out. That's a critically important piece there, Donna, that I just want to highlight is your market very well. So yes. I know I do business in a lot of central Pennsylvania, and because it's been my full-time job for 20 years, I know a lot of central Pennsylvania really well. Right. But I got to tell you, if I had $1 for every person from Allentown who bought in Reading, every person in Reading who bought in Harrisburg, every person in Harrisburg who bought in York, and every person in York who bought in Baltimore, it's like they all shift, a little bit.
Right.
I wouldn't need to do anything else because everybody always thinks one town over is better than where they are right here.
The grass is always greener, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so Donna, I want to back this up. Hold on a minute.
Hold on. So you're a long-term Harrisburg resident.
Yes, Harrisburg City.
Harrisburg City.
Okay.
Much different than Harrisburg. So that's why Anna Legal sounds totally different.
You said a couple things in this conversation. Number one, you said it was 2005 and the line was out the door, right?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And 2006 and 2005 were two of the hottest housing markets we've ever had. Yeah. There are a lot of comparisons that can be made between our current market and that market. So if you're sitting there at home watching this and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't find any deals. This is ridiculous. There's so much competition. Okay, well, guess what? It's been like this before and people still would buy and invest in real estate, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is you go to the tax sale. Now, for me, I am terrified of tax sales, and not because it's not sitting there and at the auction or doing the research or anything like that. It's like the unknown because there's so many. I mean, my background in tax sales is from Philly. Well, guess what?
You have to realize I was clueless. I had no idea what I was even doing. I had no clue. I didn't know anything about comps. I didn't know any of that. I just took a chance. I mean, really, I did. And actually, the next morning I woke up and I was like, holy shit, what did I do? And I reached out to this guy. That I had met a few years back that was into real estate. And here he was the guy who was bidding me up.
Oh, that's hilarious. Great. That's so funny.
Oh, man, I ended up offering $2,000 more than what he was willing to. So that's not pretty too bad for for a first time. But what he had advised me to do was to go there. He knew a lot about the property, so he did his research, and he knew it was an elderly lady who had been there like almost 30 years. And he had his advice I did not follow. He advised me to go there, meet with her, tell her that I'd be willing to rent back to her and this and that, just so I could get in and see the house. And, I wasn't raised like that. I'm a horrible liar, just period. It'll be written all over my face. And so I actually went there and I met the lady. And at first she was really fussing at me and stuff. And I just listened to what she said. And I said, hey, look, I could have sent an attorney to do this. I didn't have to come and see you or face you. I could have sent an attorney to do all of this. My father raised me better than that. I'm coming. I heard you was elderly. I heard you've been here a long time. I want to make sure you're okay. So when you buy at the tax sale, you don't get the deed right away. It does take a couple months. So I purchased the property in May. And my goal with that property really was for me and my family to live there. And then in 2 years, flip it, take that extra income and then, invest. That was kind of my goal. So I told her, me and my family are going to live here, but I want to make sure you're okay. So I allowed her to stay. I eventually got the title in August. So I allowed her to stay for those months for free. And then I gave her money to move and I helped her move.
Okay. Time out here. All right. So a couple steps back. How much did you pay for the property, if you don't mind?
I paid $30,000.
Okay, you paid $30,000 cash for this property.
And at that time, it would have sold for 75 to 80, depending upon how well it was rehabbed. Now, of course, when '08 hit, it wasn't worth that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But even now, I still own it.
Well, so we got $30,000 purchase price. Put 10% down, and in 30 days you had to pay the rest, right? You don't get the deed. This was in May, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't get the deed till August.
Until like August, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the interim,
person was in that home all that time.
Okay. One more question. This is a big one. This is a big one from a lender's perspective.
Yeah.
Did you get title insurance when you went? Were you able to go through a title insurer? Okay.
No,
that's what terrifies me about the tax sales. That's what terrifies me about the tax sales. And I know people that do great, like yourself. Sorry.
Yeah. I could probably obtain title insurance now. I didn't know that you could do that. And I didn't know I could get her to sign a quitclaim deed, which I did not know that. So I didn't do that. But I've had the property since 2005. And I also have the abstract. I purchased the abstract and information, which shows like everybody had been served and all the letters and things had been issued. But if I wanted to, I'd probably have to pay at this point to get someone to clear the title if I would ever want to sell it.
Okay.
Title, but still, that's very. It depends if you buy at the upset sale or the judicial sale or what.
I bought it the judicial, so everything was wiped out, and that was really good because I didn't know that. It was just by accident. That was the one that was coming up. That was the one I chose. If I would have chose the different sale, it would have been a much different outcome.
Correct.
So definitely know what you're doing. I didn't. I took a big risk. And it just, it worked out for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you worked with her. I mean, we push on this show all the time about being a human being, whether it's with a tenant that has run into some financial troubles, whether it is a seller or whatever. But the one thing that I love about what you said is like a lot of times people walk into a situation and they try to be the nice guy, right? And instead of telling people what they really need to know, like, hey, listen, I could have just had this done with an attorney. I could have just had you thrown out of this place. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not that jerk. That's huge.
So that's the thing is honesty, but also don't be afraid to have some moxie. Don't be afraid to, let them know how it goes.
Well, I did. That's why I told her, look, I didn't have to come to you in this way, but you also have to realize I was planning to bring my family and live here. Right. And the day I moved in, my neighbors loved me. Like they were like, yo, she did this for, this woman, like, look what she did for her. Like I physically drove the U-Haul, move boxes. Her kids didn't even show up. Yeah. And the thing is, the woman was probably in debt because she probably took out money to help her own children. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Donna. Let me ask you a question. I love this. What's your, if you don't mind me asking, like what's your 9 to 5? What's your day job?
Oh, I work at the Commonwealth.
Right.
Yeah, I work at the Commonwealth.
So you're not like a bridge engineer or a doctor or a lawyer.
No, I actually only have an associate's degree, and I obtained that in 2010. So
right. So a real person who lived frugally was able to buy a property, own it free and clear. You've since bought some other real estate. I've talked to you the entire time I've known you, and I've said, hey, Donna, it's just at the time I owned a mortgage company. And so I was obviously selling debt to people, but I liked helping people. And I was like, Donna, if we harvest some equity from these properties, we can then go and leverage that and use it to buy some more properties. And you were always opposed to that because, you always said my daddy always told me, you talk so much about that. I would love to have met him. But you always said, hey, debt, I want to pay down real estate and then save more and buy more. I'm not interested in doing that. But you've been able to, just by modestly owning some real estate, living a modest lifestyle, save some money, and now you're a hard money lender. You're a private money lender.
Hard money, man. They make the big bucks. They charge all the fees. I'm like, well, how do I get there, Josh?
So you
need to talk.
you do private money. Well, listen, I got to tell you, I was a hard money lender. The difference in the fees and everything like that is risk. They're willing to take riskier loans that some people aren't. So let me ask you this, Donna. So what's that experience been like? being a private lender. And I didn't know that about you. How has that been? 2 years, 5 years? How long
So what had happened was an awesome woman by the name of April Crosley came to our LIMG meetup group.
Yep.
And when I had met April, I was at the point where I was thinking, hey, I want to take this one step further. I want to, do a flip. I've always wanted to do it. And so I met her. I started going to her meetup groups, and I met with her the one day to talk about, potentially coaching me or, JVing with me. And she said, well, have you ever thought about private money lending? And I was like, no. And she taught me about it. And I said, hey, this is perfect for me, because actually at the time I met her, I was going through a lot. I had a lot going on in my personal life, my job. I worked policy for the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. It's a very worst job. I've been working since I'm 14, and it was the worst work environment I've ever worked in my life. It was actually traumatic. I think I had PTSD from that job. And I was at a point where it's like I still wanted to do real estate, but I was like, I don't know that I could really fully commit. A flip's a lot of work. And when she told me about private money lending, I was like, hell yeah, I could kick back, make money. All I got to do is review a few documents, do this and that, and sign a satisfaction piece at the end. I'm sold, So that's how I got started, April Crosley. I like it. It allows me to still really be involved in real estate, which I love. And it also helped me to overcome some of the things I was afraid of. I always doubted myself and my ability to estimate rehab costs and things like that, because a lot of the properties I did the work and my kid's dad helped me. And actually my first property on Yale Street, I even had friends that came and helped me do some of the work. So I always kind of doubted myself when it came to that. But now that I'm doing the loans, I'm like, hey, yeah, their numbers are kind of where mine are at. So it kind of gave me the confidence and stuff to be like, yeah, I could definitely do that. So that is something that I would like to do. I would prefer to do a JV with someone just because, there's so many unknowns. But for now, yeah, I really like the private money lending. I also just became a notary. I'm in the process of getting my bond and doing my oath, and my next goal is to be a signing agent.
You've been talking about that on Facebook. What?
Getting ready to be a signing agent.
Is that as a side hustle, to generate some extra capital? Is that what you're thinking there?
I would really like to not have to work for the state. I really would like to have my own business full time. And plus, as a signing agent, I'd be signing real estate documents. And it's I already do. So it's another part of real estate. I don't think people realize that there are so many avenues in real estate. I mean, between the wholesaling, and another thing I'm now getting into is note investing. That's my next thing. I want to be a lien lord, not a landlord, So people don't, and even with note investing, you don't have to have money to do note investing. You don't have to have money to be a wholesaler. You don't have to have good credit either in a lot of these things, and people just don't realize that. So I'm just really excited about the opportunities. But let me just the two examples I can give you about what real estate has done for me. I might get a little teary-eyed with the one, but the first property that I bought at the tax sale. My dad was upset with me. He wasn't real happy. It was in the hood. I didn't care. He wasn't real happy about that. And I had just left a situation. So he was not real happy with that. And he was always telling me how risky real estate was. And the reason I didn't eventually sell that property is because probably about a year and a half in, my dad got terminally ill. But I was able to take Family Medical Leave Act and not receive any pay for several months so that I could care for him while he passed. Sorry, I'm emotional. I love my dad a lot. But it's amazing because he didn't want me to buy that property. And if I would have listened to him, the person that I loved and I trusted the most, I wouldn't have been able to take care of him. If I would have had rent, if I would have had a mortgage, I couldn't have done that for him. So, and then actually on my 28th birthday, I got laid off, or my 36th birthday, I got laid off, and my dad died 4 days later. And because I got laid off, it was 2008, I got unemployment. And so I was able to stay on unemployment, go to school. I finally got my associate's degree. And I was able to be an at-home mom with my daughter, who was still young at the time, my son. So like, I look at this property and I'm like, one decision to just do it, like, has blessed my family for years. Like, that one decision to just go for it and to not listen to all those people that told me. And by the way, I was 33 when I bought that. I was telling people I'd be 30, by the time I was 35, I was 33. But everybody told me no, even my dad. And trust me, I'm sure he's really glad now that I bought that property, because I didn't have to put him in a nursing home. I didn't have to have, other people caring for him. I was able to go without any income.
Yeah, that's so great, because, Josh and I, like, we've drunk the Kool-Aid, right? Like, we're real estate investors through and through. Bruce, one of my earliest mentors who we've had on the show, Bruce. I mean, how can you not love Bruce? Bruce always says, you never really quit your job when you become a real estate investor. Your job just changes. Yeah. And that's what Josh and I are. Like, we're full-time real estate investors, but like, your job just changes. But even if you don't want to go whole hog, even if you don't want to go all in on becoming real estate investors, buy a property or two.
Right.
Like, it's just amazing.
Not just that. The one thing that they do not teach people, and I tell my friends this all the time, and they open their mouth like, "What are you talking about, Willis?" Buy your first home, buy a 2 to 4 unit. You can use a regular mortgage, a regular FHA mortgage. Only put 3.5% down. That's all you need, and you could buy a 2 to 4 unit. If you buy a 4 unit, you ain't never paying rent again, honey. And the only thing you're paying for that property is the money that you put down. Right. Let other people pay your rent. If that's how they wanted to, let other people pay your rent. And that's what I'm telling my kids. I think they're getting it. But that, like, I learned that at LIMG. I never knew that. And I'm like,
Yeah, LIMG is the name of my club, which we're going to be meeting, Donna, we're so close. I mean, airlines are starting to remove the restrictions on the center seats. We're going to be able to sit at a bar and order a drink again here really soon. Like, society is very close to not freaking out and panicking if we have face-to-face meetings. And really, half the reason I love real estate, it is at least half the reason I love real estate, is stories just like yours and meeting people like you. I mean, you've always been one of my biggest fans. I consider you a dear friend, because we've known each other as well as we have for as long as we have. And I love seeing where you were in real estate and where you've come to, and what just modest investment and slow, consistent action over time, what it's done for you. It's just amazing to see.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm taking, more steps little by little. I'm learning more about leveraging. I'm growing. But it really took a long time. It's a lot of mind shifting, seeing things differently, thinking about things differently. Even like, I had thought about doing a refinance, and then when I realized that I was starting the clock all over again, I was like, I just want the clock, wow, but a lot of people don't realize that, or the streamline, they don't realize that a lot of times you're resetting and you're going back to paying the bank more interest and less going towards your principal. So, just like, honestly, the house that I live in right now, this is my 4th property, and it's my first ever mortgage.
Right. That's crazy. That's
so like, I don't know a whole lot about mortgages, which people are like, well, how can you own these houses and not know that? Well, because I haven't, because what I did when I bought the property at the tax sale, I learned how to open a home equity line of credit, and then I used that to use my other rental property. So I never had to get a mortgage.
Really smart.
So,
smart.
Like, dear listeners, if you're paying attention, tag people in this. Tell people to watch this from the beginning. There's a lot of people who need to hear Donna's story and need to see this video, and who can figure out how to take baby steps. And maybe some of your people who have disagreed with you should watch this so that they can figure some stuff out. Donna, I have 2 questions here. We don't have a lot of time, but one of the things that I'd like to point out is you in the private money space, you don't have to have, if somebody needs a $200,000 loan, you don't have to have all $200,000 of that yourself. You can
No.
do what banks do all the time. They do what's called participation and partner with other banks, and you can do that.
Well, or if you have equity in your home, that's what I did. I just pulled equity out. Well, that interest rate on that loan is low. So I can lend that out because it's private money. I'm lending it out at a higher rate. And if I do it right, I'll still make money, but it's not even my money I'm lending out. It's, the bank's money,
That's what the banks do. It's called arbitrage. Why do you think banks pay you interest for a savings account and sell CDs and other stuff like that? It's so that they have your money so that they can lend it out. Let me ask you this, Donna. Yeah. Let's say somebody has $200,000, $150,000, whatever. You don't need $8 million.
They don't even have to have that. And also remember, if you have a 401k, you can lend from your 401k. That's what I do. Some of my lending is through retirement. Like I started working at Blue Shield when I was in 1990, right out of high school. And I always had a 401k and I would roll it over. I didn't never cash it in. So when I met April, I transferred that money into a self-directed IRA. And so now I lend from that, but I also lend from my private funds. So even if you have an IRA, you can use that money to buy real estate,
$8 million
to lend. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You do want to use some of your own money though, because you can't. Otherwise, everything's tied up in your.
Right. Exactly.
Can't live off that today. So you marry those up, and you've also found other partners to work with. But where do you find the people to lend to?
April Crosley. No. Love you, April. No, I mean, April, some of the people I did, because April Crosley used to lead her own group, but she also led a women's group. So I've met people through April. And then my current borough, he keeps me really busy. And I met him by accident. A friend of mine said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this garage. And I know you're into real estate. Could you come meet my financial advisor and see if we can figure this out? And so I met the guy actually by accident. So, but really a lot of it is just networking, talking to people. You just want to make sure if you do lend, you always want to make sure you're doing it through a title company. I've realized after working with April, I did a loan years ago, but the guy didn't do it on the up and up. He never recorded it. It wasn't until I worked with April that I realized, but I did have questions even back then. And I'm like, yeah, I was right. I was really understanding it. He wasn't doing it right. Just make sure you're working and work with someone who has process, not someone who's just kind of winging it. You want to make sure they have processes in place and, kind of systematized. They've been at it for a while. Make sure, they're real, legit.
Later this spring, Judah and I are going to have a challenge where we're going to be doing some basically step-by-step explanation on how to invest as a private investor. We're not doing that just yet, but man, this is like gold, the stuff you're talking about. I mean, it's incredible. You might look at your bank account and be like, well, I don't have enough money to lend.
Right, you'd be surprised.
That's exactly right. You start looking, and all of a sudden, there's the opportunity for the HELOC. There's the 401k. You got your self-directed IRA, and if you're smart, you got a self-directed Roth IRA too. And it might not have much money in it, but all that adds up. A couple bucks here and there, and all of a sudden, it's a great situation.
And I can't believe. So, I humbly say, and she'll tell you too, that I helped April get started in a lot of the different things that she does. She was an investor before she met me, but I helped take her and told her the power of teaching and coaching other people. And I cannot believe that as much respect as I have for that woman, I haven't had her on our show yet, Josh. I
thought you had her on. Yeah.
I know.
Josh, we haven't had April Crosley on, have we?
No, we haven't. Not yet.
She might have been on the list or something like that. Yeah, I got to get her on the list. We got to have her on because she's amazing. And just like you said, Donna, she's a very giving spirit, very helping.
She's a do-giver.
Yes.
And that's what I really liked about her. That's what I really liked.
And what's funny is like she operates like way up here. She's like high energy. And she has the audacity to call her company Lazy Girl.
REI. No, she works smarter, not harder. If you work in your mind versus your physical every day, she works smarter, not harder. That's my motto. Smarter,
My favorite April story, and I'll tell this in front of her, is like when she's rehabbing a house, like she's like, hey, siding contractor, go there on Wednesday and do it. And the siding contractor's like, well, what color? And she's like, you pick the color based on the house and the rest of the decor. If I have to tell you what color to pick, you're fired.
Sounds like her.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I mean, look, I don't have the guts to do something like that, but if it works out for her, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, she's outsources all the decisions.
We women, sometimes we have to take different approaches. Like, this is a very male-dominated environment. It's becoming less male-dominated, right. But sometimes we just kind of have to let y'all know we ain't scared.
Right. I mean, amen, sister. Yeah. Amen.
Right.
Well, listen, this has been a great show. We're going to wrap this up.
Josh, thank you.
Donna, awesome. Thanks for being here. Everybody, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It's awesome. Please, if you enjoy the show, make sure you like and share it. We're going to be back here tomorrow with all the news that's fit to print on Friday, real estate related, of course. Thanks. Everybody have a great day and go out and make some money.
See ya. Hope to see April on here soon.
Take care.
See you guys.